Hi guys, back for another episode of Frugal Fridays where I share some money saving hints, tips and hacks that I've learned across my 20 years of riding bikes and working in the bicycle industry. And as it's still really cold outside, I thought I'd share some tips on how to keep your feet warm. So first up is one that costs nothing at all, but one that's often overlooked. Most shoes are designed for warm weather, so they nearly always have holes in them like these ones here. Ignore the condition of my cleats, I know they're pretty knackered. But these are designed to keep your feet cool. But in winter, what they actually do is let in water and let in cold air. So an easy way to keep your feet warmer without spending any money is to simply use some electrical tape like this to cover up any holes you'll have. Also, keep an eye on the back of your shoes as well. There's often vents tucked away in other places you haven't spotted. So that's a really easy tip for keeping your feet warm that doesn't cost you a penny. Next up, insoles. Now, insoles make a big difference to how your feet fit in the shoe and your power output and all of those things. But one thing that people often overlook is a thermal insole. So one that I used and have used for quite a few seasons is the version from Lake. So I've used these in standard road shoes as well as kind of winter shoes to add another little bit of thermal protection. So if you have a look at the bottom here, you'll notice it's got lots of these holes indented into the bottom of the sole. What that does is it traps pockets of hot air, so keeps your feet warmer when you're riding. Really good little hack for anyone who's got standard shoes or a winter shoe that isn't quite warm enough, and these are only 25 quid, so really top tip for getting some extra warmth out there. Another tip that I like to use, and one that often gets overlooked, are these. Now these are hand warmers. These are from Decathlon. There are other options available. I tend to use these because they're really easy to get hold of and they're quite cheap. It's $5.99 for a packet of 10, so really handy. What I like to do with these is you can tuck these into the top of your shoe if you like, if you have enough room, or you can tuck them into the back of your gloves if you're finding your hands get really cold. They're cheap, easy to use, and they do keep your hands warm for a good 2 to 3 hours. Now, they're not as good as, say, like a really heavy, juicy winter glove, but they are a lot cheaper. And for me, I prefer to use a thinner glove that gives me more feel and a better ride experience, and that I'm going to use for more of the year than a thicker glove. And I simply just pop these in the back and it just gives you a bit of extra warmth. So if you're the sort of rider that spends lots of time out in really cold conditions, then by all means go for some, thick gloves and big overshoes. But if you kind of don't do it that often and you want to save a bit of money, these are a really good way of doing it. These are also really good as well if you ride with your kids. These have rescued many a ride for me with the children. If their hands get too cold or if they're a bit miserable, pop some of these in, saves your ride. And last but not least, socks. Now, socks are never the most interesting thing, I'll be honest, but they make a big difference to how warm your feet are on a ride. But don't be fooled into going for something too thick straight away. I'm a big fan of bridge style socks. I've been using them for a while now. Well, to be fair, I've been using them for over 20 years. I was a fan of them when I first worked at Millets 25 years ago as a Saturday guy. But these are this particular sock is my go-to for when it's really cold. So these are the mid-season merino mountain bike socks. They do warmer socks, and I do wear those at home, but I tend not to wear them on my bike because they're a little bit thick. Thicker socks in a road shoe or a gravel shoe mean you can't move your feet quite as much or can't wiggle your toes around, so your feet will get colder. I prefer to go for something thinner that's still got some thermal qualities, but it means I can move my feet around. These have also got quite a padded sole to them as well, which not only gives you a little bit more insulation, but that kind of shock absorption also means your feet don't get quite as sore, which means when they're cold, it's not as big of a problem. These are, not the cheapest socks, but they are super good quality and they do last a long time. These are 24 quid for a pair. But they're invaluable. I've used them for all sorts of riding through all sorts of weathers, and combined with a good overshoe or a really good winter boot, these have been absolutely fantastic and saved many a ride. So don't discount the humble sock, but definitely don't go for something too thick. There you go. So that's 4 quick and easy tips on how to keep warm without spending a huge amount of money. For more money saving tips and more Frugal Friday videos, don't forget to like and subscribe and give us a follow. Cheers, guys.